is the most terrifying thing ever done to feel something?
The living have always pursued that which is terrific. I had just flown on a balloon, and it had me thinking of the developments needed to get here. From Han Dynasty bamboo fireworks to the current processions, which to the same people some thousands of years earlier would have been interpreted as nothing less than an act from God. Why? Why do we do this? How did we get here? We, since before paintings on cave walls, told stories. Of those stories of the stars and the earth, I imagine, even then, were stories designed, crafted by the beauty of language for its listeners to make their heart, breath, mind all move faster. To elicit sensations we have to better allow us to survive when facing the terrors of the world, to live. But the living, oh, the living, they so very much do love to see how much further they can go in creating new ways to heighten the feelings, the senses of being alive. I here would like to do the same as many before me, and as will many more after me, telling the stories of our people. And in this project, terror, 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 terrific. No greater word than that to describe our pursuit of thrill. To achieve a different state of mind, substances have been able to do that, and the living had sought them out. Dolphins use pufferfish. Humans, usually in ritual and religion, sought out what sometime literally was the fruits of the earth. The indigenous of America used peyote from cacti to experience hallucinations. In ancient Sumeria and Egypt, opium was used to experience a sort of euphoria. So then, sports. In ancient Crete, the Minoans vaulted over charging bulls, adrenaline fueling the crowd and the players. Of adrenaline-fueled ritual, I also must mention India, the Agni Kriya, where for their fire god and audience, people would run across burning hot coals. Why? As a civilization evolves, so does their terrific pursuits. Rome, after 1,000 years of science and engineering, they constructed it. An amphitheater, who would be known as Colosseum for the colossus which once stood to its side. Built by volcanic rock and stone, it was made stronger than and shall stand longer than what people would build thousands of years later. This monument to human captivation and dedication towards sport. This project taking the collaboration of people and ideas, unlike anything for the thousands of years to either side of its only 8-year construction. Slaves were made both the constructors and the contestants in what it was made for. The gladiatorial games. What spectacular and terrible violence. Here also nourished by the spirit of tens of thousands of screaming souls filled with excitement and fear. Chariot races, who in crashes and competition were pioneers in the allure of velocity. Below the Colosseum were lifts designed to bring out animals for hunts. Then, using technology of water ducts, they would even go so far as to flood the arena to hold mock ship battles. All this incited by so many humans setting aside their individual creeds and convictions to construct that which is greater than themselves. Collaboration, a quality that has made humans so great, they thrust into their insatiable appetite to ascertain more of those sensations of being alive, which in developing technology they will, in a greater capacity, receive. Following roads dotted with crucifixes the Roman people pitched in the north is where you can find, in similar spirit to that, the legend of the Celtic Wicker Man, where druids were said to have constructed giant human-shaped effigies and filled them with live humans or animals, and then burned them as offerings to the gods for their community. Why? What is so incredible to me is the time and energy that goes behind all of this. The waking up in the morning, the putting on of shoes, then the participation towards these exhilarating acts. For example, in the Han Dynasty in China, acrobats would dedicate their lives to becoming great in contorting and moving their flesh to achieve something awe-inspiring. Less skillful, but notable. Gambling. Shenanigans people of the time also got into. Mesoamerica. Like the people who they never knew existed, separated by oceans and time, but in the same spirit. The people of these empires would engage in sport involving life and death, carving out a goal into the rock of a building whose outcome in this ball game would determine the life or death of its contestants. Here also, for inspiring fear, the Aztecs, in the same gruesome principle which they became known for, created a whistle designed to simulate the sound of a screaming human. Further south, and of no relation, tribes developed something. The bullet ant, one of the single most painful creatures this world has produced, was encountered by these humans, and they made the paraponera clavata, the bullet ant glove. By weaving these ants into a glove, they could unite hundreds of stingers into one place to experience its pain for 30 minutes. For many times over months, this ritual is done to prove the strength and endurance like so many civilizations do. Why? In the island nation of Vanuatu are the land divers, men who would bind themselves with vine and then throw themselves from cliffs with the goal of coming as close to hitting the rock as possible while still escaping its mutilation. Mongolia. In the Nadam festival, children on beasts comprised of hundreds of pounds of muscle would race without gear, pushing the limit on what humans can achieve in velocity by the help of other living creatures like the Romans and the Egyptians and the Persians and so many others, all who they never knew, irregardless of injury or danger experienced or potential. It would continue on to be done by their ancestors to this day. Japan. The
Bridge is called the Hyakko Monogatari Kaidankai.
A gathering of 100 supernatural tales. In the context of the spirits, people would sit in a circle with 100 candles. They would extinguish one, then another. Then, as the room got darker and the nervousness of all present grew, at the final candle going out, a spirit may appear. These little rituals people will continue to do in many different forms. So, we are at the medieval. At this time in Europe, festivals were held. Here, many people would gather. The center of what they had gathered for? Executions. The attendants who the next day may wake up and eat some bread after experiencing the heightened adrenaline of the day before in the screeching mob they were a part of, and look forward to the next. Why, In iron and animal, here also was the sport of the jousts. Hundreds of pounds of metal and creature coming into thunderous impact. Tournaments that took the lives of both kings and knights, but all the same, before onlookers, these steeds were mounted. I can't help but think of the time and energy gone into organizing such events. Why, The dark carnivals. Here, freak shows were held to parade people born with deformities, or they would play out morality plays of graphic depictions of demons and hell, or before their audience reveal body parts of supposed infamous criminals. In Spain, in the trials held to seek out witches or heretics was the public's auto da fe, where the accused were publicly tortured in these theatrical displays like the Wicker Man and crucifixions of the land 1,000 years prior. Why? Renaissance. So here we have the art. Heart palpitating works depicting heaven and hell. In other religions, this same pounding of the soul in art can be found better done in developing techniques. Then again, in Spain, with no connection to the Minoans, came about the bullfight. Who, like the land divers in the Pacific, the matador, would bring the bull within inches of his body and enthrall the crowd and himself in this stupendous, adrenaline-filled spectacle. Animals, again, are brought into human pulpits of thrill in the snake charmers, who throughout the world would bring about spectacles to a nervous and captivated audience. As humans became more literate, literature began to become proliferated as a means of disseminating panic-inducing text. Previously something reserved for priests before a pulpit to a congregation about their gods, the common man could now do for monsters of their own creation, the same stories generations later would consume. Some Gothic stories were adapted into graphic horror plays like in Paris, Grand Guignol
is how it's said.
Theater, whose name became synonymous with shock horror, and even later using projections to create ghosts in their productions. In this time, novel stunts like the tightrope was introduced. Why? As a civilization evolves, so does their ability to manifest the more terrific. So we find ourselves with steel and industry, and that, like the unity of the Romans for humans, once again brought out brilliant constructions for terror. So the first roller coaster was made, and it will continue to develop as technology does, and that has begun to go at a rapid pace now. Humans have just done it. They've managed to capture a moment in time with light and glass, which allows us to have with us now these people's stories in a more complete way. That is where we meet Franz, the flying tailor, an inventor who had a passion for creating a parachute suit. To test his invention at the Eiffel Tower is where he planned to jump. He did not survive. Why? Why do people push themselves like this? Greg Mallory had said when asked why he had endeavored to climb Mount Everest, this act which was inherently opposed to anything living. He had said, because it's there. His body was found in 1999. Another life who looked to push what was possible was Houdini, the stunt performer and magician of his generation, using his brilliance to manufacture the most terrifying of scenarios. Why, In Germany, the Hinterkaifeck family were all murdered in their home. People then from towns all over would come into their home and theorize what could have happened, as people are drawn by morbid fascination to these things, like what happened with Floyd Collins. I think of Floyd Collins, a man who had gotten himself stuck underground, this story becoming an international sensation in America. A predecessor maybe these stories are to the true crime people would go on to enjoy, sometimes even behind comment sections for the scarier parts, but they and I watch them all the same, as it provides feelings that, even though sometimes are unnerving, are irregardless vicariously captivating. Why? In machines, automobiles, with the carefully controlled explosions their engines housed, began to make the sport of thrill and the velocity it can possess into something far greater. In the sky, barnstorming. Planes would increase risk to perform terrific maneuvers, sometimes even having people dance on the wings to elicit hearts in the throats of their spectators. That type of person on those wings was found in other places as well, like Karl Wallenla, a tightrope walker who, despite injury or fear, continued to perform these stunts into his 70s. Of course, there is then also Evel Knievel. Why? So, on developments on substances, they've become quite interesting. Consequences have increased with the potential strength these substances bring. So, something I figured ought to be included is people consenting to pain, or however, for a more heightened or experience when doing or being involved with the devil's tango, if you catch my drift. Base jumping. Now with parachutes. Why, So at this point, most of the banana stuffs that can be done has been done, so people began taking this previous stuff and making it more extreme.
Hey Jeff, show them how we living, baby. This boy got skills. Oh!
Example, haunted houses. Taking what things already were and then having people sign a waiver before escalating it. Another example. People began asking, what do you get when you mix being unable to breathe with being unable to see? Correct. Cave diving. Film. Millions of people paying to see something that, if it is great, will have them leave a light on at night, or as the music crescendos, hold their breath. What genius! Extreme sports. We no longer have the fire god agony that these stunts are done in the name of. It is now the bowl once again. The research and engineering that goes into creating the most terrific stunts, or even just capturing them for your viewing, is brilliant. But of course, there is...
Oh, the sounds, I don't like them. No!
No longer are you spectator. You now can participate in the quests our ancestors could only speak of. Why, So here we are. Not just in time, but quite literally on the internet, with the ability now for every person to be of the audience to someone else. So, what is being done? Well, you, me, the audience, the people want more. And so creators will do more for them to feed that want in the audience and themselves to greater affect the spirit. Bigger, louder, faster. Millions of creative minds working towards not what is good, but greatest. Then on it, they put their big, gaping mouths to communicate on the experience that you could have by clicking. Why? Civilization and technology advances, and ever since we are children, whether it be technically or just in its experience, it is terrific to experience all of this. We trust in these machines, wait in these terribly long lines in cold or heat for hours to After I was strapped into a ride, before we ascended, I had asked the attendant if, after being present for so many people's experience on it, if she had any advice. To allow to escape all the stress and energy my body held, she said, "Scream." So we reached the top. Panic set in my body. My heart, breath, and mind all moved faster. And just before the fall, I looked out and thought, oh, that's beautiful. So, where do we go from here? Well, with technology, I am sure that which previously could only terrify us in our nightmares, the living shall soon be able to feel with machines, removing the detachment between spectacle and ourselves in a way that machines couldn't match the demand of or videos the feelings of. So why? To experience moments of that which makes us feel more alive, like our ancestors before us. Why? Why? I'm inclined to agree that in humans is a want or compulsion to go outside of what is comfortable, to experience or achieve greater in their life. So why? Why? Because it is terrific! That's why we do it. I do not know what the future will hold, what the living shall do when we are no longer among them, but whatever they may be or become, man or machine, I am certain they will continue to ask and act forward toward that which the living always have done. How much further can we go? How much further can we go? How much further can we go? How much further can we go in our pursuit of thrill?
Amen.